She is a woman. She is a mother, daughter, wife, sister. She is a person. She is strong, smart, crafty. She is passionate, courageous, generous. Cooking barefoot is only one of several superpowers. She is action, emotion, devotion. She has hope, beauty, power. She has a brain and she knows how to use it. She gives life, she gives respect, love, gratitude. She believes in you. She will nurture you, fight for you. She deserves nothing less from you. And yes, words are important, but action is the only thing that will bring change. Greetings to our chief speakers, Thuto Masasa, Busisiwe Sithole, Tsholofelo Segone, Balibeji Makau, our host, Gugu Tshabalala, our highly esteemed guest, ABASA members whom we refer to as leaders, ladies and gentlemen, and for emphasis, all protocol observed. I am Khanyisile Mahlangu, and yes, I'm a woman, but a million other things as well. I welcome you all once again. With this event, we aim to unpack the meaning of being a woman in different aspects of life, the unique challenges faced in these spaces, and ways in which we can ensure that the next generation does not go through what we went through and has a better reality. Therefore, these are a few house rules for this evening. Can all participants keep their mics muted as well as switch off their videos, with the exception of the speakers and the host? Please use appropriate language when asking questions, respect people's opinions, and do keep the conversation flowing in the public chats. Thank you. Over to our host, Gugu.
Before we hand over to me, thank you, Kani. I would just like to hand over to Ms. Zanele Mahlangu, the lovely lady who will be introducing our topic for today. Over to you, Zanele.
Okay, thank you very much, Gugu. Good evening, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zanele Mahlangu, and I am a third-year accounting student at Wits. And I've been granted the opportunity today to give a brief introduction of today's family meeting, to which I'm very excited about and I am grateful for. So today we'll be talking about everything women, as the title suggests, and the overarching theme is being a woman. And I would just like to take a few minutes to say what being a woman means, what it is and what it means to me. But before I do that, I just want to add that given the times that we are living in, particularly in South Africa, I think today's discussion is a very much needed one. And I believe that we're going to have a very fruitful, informative, and burning discussion. And the reason I say that is because if you check the time differences, back in the 1950s, women used to fight for equal rights and opportunities. But today, as women, not only are we fighting for equal rights and opportunities, but we are also fighting to stay alive. Women wake up every day in South Africa and hope to make it home safe, by the end of the day, young or old. And I think for me, that is a reason for a woman today to go out and grab the world by the lapels. And not only that, but I think it's an even greater reason for us as women to unite, to stand together, and push each other towards the achievement of great things in life. So being a young woman for me means always aiming high. It means working hard. It means believing even in my wildest dreams. And if I ever stumble, it means getting right back up, pushing myself, and never listening to anyone that says I can't or shouldn't go on. It means going out there, breaking out of my comfort zones, seizing opportunities, and putting my name out there for myself before a hashtag comes and puts it out there for me. I think as women, especially as young women, we should hold each other accountable in ensuring that no woman is left behind. I believe in women empowerment. I am an advocate of women empowerment, and I think that women themselves should do that for their own selves. Well, not own selves, but as women together. And that is just a bit about how I feel as a young woman today. So basically, today's discussion is going to be broken down into 4 segments. We have 4 very amazing speakers. I hope you guys have read up a bit about them, that will be telling us about being a woman in different spheres, being in leadership, society, from a student's perspective, and in the corporate world. And without wasting any further time, I would like to hand back over to the host to introduce them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zanele, for the lovely introduction. I think before I even begin, in the spirit of us grabbing the world by the lapels and, bringing ourselves out there, I would just like to encourage all of our attendees to please engage with us on the public chats. This conversation is meant to be, driven mostly by your questions, and your questions are the ones that matter. So for this segment of the conversation, before I even begin, I would like to just re-emphasize that maybe please, any comments, any questions that you have before we get into the conversation part after the speakers give their initial reviews, maybe please just put your questions in there. Yes, and that is it. With that being said, I would really like to thank the ABASA Wits team for allowing me the opportunity to, present such an important event and an important conversation. And also, I really love, the whole intention behind the conversation, in that it is not only us talking about the issues, because I believe that, with COVID-19 and the surge in so many online engagements, we've been talking for quite a bit, right? And it is time now that we sort of change the angle at which we're looking at the conversation and speaking more on the solutions and making the solutions the biggest part of the conversation, and not just a little like 5 minutes at the end. And also, I really love the hashtag that we're using, which is Make Every Day Women's Day, because I truly believe that our women deserve to be seen, deserve to be acknowledged, celebrated, and protected 24/7 throughout the entire year. So now, when I looked at the topic, I honestly have to admit that I was quite a bit challenged, in the sense that, like, I thought to myself, oh my word, I'm just Bianca, and, how on earth am I going to tackle such a huge topic, which in and of itself has so many intertwined and interrelated subtopics. And I thought to myself, well, I can first reflect on what it means for me, what being a woman means for me, and in particular, what being a young woman means. And not only what it means, however, but also the unique challenges that I had not expected, living as a woman in 2020. And with that, I'd like to share, in relaying my reflections, I would just like to share a quick story. So recently, I was involved in a bit of a situation with an elder family member, and this was a situation where we had gotten into, I would say, like a bit of an altercation. However, the end result was that, unprovoked, I was threatened with violence, right? And as much as that situation in and of itself was very upsetting, I think what was even more disappointing for me was the way in which the people around me dealt with it. So the older men and women in the family, whom I had expected to, from as people who are in my safe space and people who, raised me, who I expected to support me and to also protect me, instead of them doing that, what happened was rather that I was policed on the tone of language that I was using in expressing that I was upset about the situation, you know. And they were the first people to tell me that, no, but Gugu, as much as this situation is upsetting me, you should keep quiet. You should let it go, and you should just ignore it, right? Which is very, very alarming to me, because we find that in a lot of cases of domestic violence and things like this, such things happen because those closest to us wants to hide the shame, and women are forced to bear the burden of sacrificing. Excuse me for that. And women are forced to bear the burden of sacrificing their own peace for the sake of the peace of the family, right? And I realized that not only, and when I went back to reflect on the situation, I realized this was really not a narrative that was unique to me. As much as I was shocked that it was happening to me because I hadn't expected it, but it's something that plays out for many, many women, my peers, my friends, and all women in all aspects of society, whether that be in their own families, or whether that be in their own families, or at work, or in the university spaces, or even in the rough streets of Twitter. We are always policed on, no, as a woman, this is how you should express yourself. You should try and be quiet and not offend anyone with your existence, no matter what you have to sacrifice, right? And so to me, basically what that did was bring up a dilemma in which I'm thinking to myself, how, as a woman who's being told that, in the public media, that I have to take up space, I have to be bold and express myself in whatever way I want, how do I then do that? Yet at the same time, my everyday reality, and probably the reality of most women, is that the people closest to them are the ones who are suppressing that, right? And I hope that is a question that we will be able to answer throughout the conversation, that our panelists will be able to answer, and that everyone in the chat, the attendees, can also give their input on. And with that being said, I would like to introduce our first speaker. She is a colleague of mine, who I'm very proud and happy to have to share the platform with, Ms. Tsholofelo Segone. She is the ABASA Wits Subcommittee member. So, Ms. Tsholofelo, welcome, and may you please give us your initial take on the subject as a young woman.
Thank you so much, Gugu. It's such an honor to be on this panel with such phenomenal women. I'm really thankful for this opportunity. So being a young woman for me basically means that being able to grasp every opportunity that comes my way to not only empower myself, but to also empower others that come after me. It also comes with also being actively involved in issues that we as women in South Africa face. In terms of issues, I mean gender-based violence. So I think an important aspect is that as young women, we should constantly ask ourselves on what am I doing to make the world a better place for those that come after me. And it also comes with the point that we always say, lifting as I rise, lifting as we rise. So I feel like a huge part of me on being a woman is also about me making sure that I lift as I rise so that I make the world a better place. So as young women in South Africa, we are exposed to gender-based violence. We are exposed to constantly having to fight for our lives, for the basic human rights of safety, of life. So it also does not only come with those challenges. So I feel we should also focus on the opportunities that are there for us. For instance, some of the opportunities that we take for granted is the cell phones that we use on a daily basis. So I feel as young women, we should reflect on whether are we using our cell phones or our cell phones using us? Are we using the cell phones that we have to get information, to empower ourselves? Are we acquiring skills, just so that we can expose ourselves to opportunities, so that we can create networks that we can use to empower others that come before us, and to also empower ourselves and create opportunities. Therefore, I believe that as young women right now, we do have those challenges that we are going through, but we should also focus more on the opportunities that we have to empower ourselves and draw strength from women of 1956 that have paved the way for us, that have shown that they are so resilient in fighting for equality. So we should draw strength from them and know that the fight is possible and we can actually win it. So my take is that as young women, we have opportunities. So it's up to us to look at those opportunities and empower ourselves with that. Let us not dwell on the problems. As much as there are issues and they're affecting us, but let us not really dwell on the problems that we have so that we can move forward as a nation. I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much for that, Tsholofelo. And from us aspiring CAs to someone who has actually become, the end, who has reached the end of our aspirations, I would like to welcome Ms. Thuto Masasa, and she is the national head of advisory at BDO. Ms. Thuto, please may you give us your initial reviews on the topic from as a woman who has who is a powerhouse in the corporate sector. Thank you.
Thanks, Gugu. And well, firstly, thank you for this opportunity to just share with you and be on this platform. It's a pity we are where we are, where we get to be meeting electronically, not in person. These things are always better shared, sitting around a room looking at each other so we can hopefully share freely. But I guess we are adjusting to what now is termed to be the new normal. But in relation to the topic, firstly, I think for me, it's very important, I think, for us to be wary, not to be boxed into a victim mentality. And I think Tsholofelo touched on it, and to say what are the opportunities around us, whilst there are constraints and a lot of weaknesses around ourselves. Because I truly believe a victim mentality is a very dangerous mentality, because then you don't get yourself out of the situation, instead of then saying, how do I move on with life? So, I mean, there's a lot of topics and a lot of research, a lot of data around, this particular topic around women. It's quite interesting when you look at, if you go onto Google and you just look at anything about women, there's a lot of data on particularly touching on inequalities or the lack of equity thereof. And for me, it's just reflecting particularly on those stats and what they could possibly mean for us. I mean, generally, the data that's out there tells us that, at a school age, a girl child outperforms boys. Data then tells us as well, in terms of undergraduate, degrees, you find a lot more women succeeding. I think the statistics that we've been told, there's about, say, 57% of women that get their undergraduate degrees compared to men. 60% of women getting their master's degree. Recently as well, and they do it year on year, McKinsey 2019 report, Women at Work, also kind of came out with data indicating that there's about, say, 47-48% of women that get into the workplace. However, somewhat the numbers start to kind of, decrease and really go down when you get into what is termed as C-suite. And this is now looking at your senior management level and at your executive level, And for me, it is great that we've got that data and that statistics, but I think we've got to really get behind the story and understand what is the story behind those numbers. How do we possibly get there? Because it is not lack of the brains for a girl child to get in the front. As I'm saying, clearly data does tell us that girl children outperform the boys. We all get into university, in fact, get to be successful in terms of really completing our degrees more than the boys. And then as well, yeah, we enter these corporate space almost on par, 47%, 48% is not bad. But then how do we get to really that number of 21% of only women in leadership spaces, in C-suite spaces, you know? So maybe without necessarily theorizing as such, and I had to, you kind of forced me to reflect on my own journey, you know, to then say, what are some of the observations on a personal level in terms of perhaps working the journey up to where I am now, you know? I find myself in an organization, yes, 1,700 people, part of the executive team there. I lead people that some of them are older than me, males, and quite a diverse team, both white and black, and Indian, so on, and you know. But I mean, you know, I really just wanted to have as an honest discussion as I can have. And I don't think it's been sort of, I could say, a very easy journey, but at the same time, I wouldn't really say I found myself as a victim as such. And I'll start off when I finished my articles, you know, got to be a manager. In being a manager, stayed within that particular organization for say about 8 years or so. But I mean, I kind of asked myself, and which led to me leaving the organization, a couple of questions. I was getting to a point where I just felt in terms of my goals, I was not necessarily getting to the promotion that I was personally expecting in terms of my own personal goals. And that, when I reflect being older now, I do think one of the things that really led to that particular process could have been maybe lack of finding what is termed as a sponsor or mentor within the organization. And I think that is quite important, and there is a couple of obstacles when it comes to maybe a woman or a girl child in finding these sponsors within an organization. I mean, we look at a lot of leaders, and even today, as much as I think in South Africa and the world, they say there is some level of traction in including women, but there is still a lot more males at the top. So naturally in business and anywhere, they do say that, you know, we do business or we relate to people that almost look like us to some degree. It becomes a natural thing. You know, you look at your friends, probably now at university, they're most likely to be people that you can relate to largely. Whatever kind of connects you, I don't know what that could be, but there's something that connects you. So I think sponsorship stroke and mentor is probably imperative, and I'm saying this for perhaps maybe the audience here to just be cognizant of that. Obviously, there aren't many women in leadership spaces, so the sponsorship or mentorship thing, unless somebody else introduces to you, it just does not become a natural thing, you know. So I would then just say being wary around who really is mentoring you and is sponsoring you. And this is quite, for me, and I'll again maybe go back to me, it's important because one, you get somebody within an organization, like we find life partners in life, you get somebody in an organization who witnesses your journey in your career and is able to articulate that in the right places in terms of what you kind of doing and your achievements and, you know, the traction and progress that you're making. So that I think we've just got to be wary, because it's just never going to be natural, because there aren't just too many women in there. And I saw the difference when I left the specific organization, and I fortunately joined a women-owned organization. And in that particular organization, I found myself a lot more involved in a lot more things. And I think that's what really led to some of maybe what I could term some of my achievements today, or understanding some aspects in business. So that's maybe the one thing that I'll pick on. And maybe the second thing that we can all debate as we go along, you know, the entire sort of salary differences or pay differences, you know, they are real. And for me, again, it led to my leaving, because I just recall one day walking down a basement, and a colleague of mine who was on the same level as me called a manager, male, was driving a better car than me, but the car wasn't an issue. What was an issue for me was just knowing his circumstances, that he was married with a wife that does not necessarily work. But that also was not an issue, but the issue for me was the fact that I'm as a conservative person, as I consider myself a conservative person, couldn't afford a 2-bedroom flat at that point. And I asked myself, how is it possible that we are on the same level? I've got a colleague who's got literally a wife who does not work. He lives okay and everything else. And I can barely actually get to be given a mortgage to buy a 2-bedroom flat, you know? So something definitely doesn't add up for me. And I think my leaving wasn't necessarily to say I felt a victim. I left to look for opportunities for myself. I then said, this particular environment is not necessarily going to perhaps maybe harness my own personal aspirations. Let me go look for opportunities elsewhere. And that's where I said I was fortunate enough to then find a space where it was actually an organization that was led by a woman, and by default, I guess myself giving myself that particular opportunity, then I got to thrive in that particular manner. So maybe I'll just pick on those two so that I don't necessarily go on for long, and allow us to have a conversation as we go along. So, I pick on there maybe the pay issue, just so that at least we are wary that we are not always equal, so that you can ask what you are worth, and you can ask the questions as you get into these sort of spaces, to make sure that at least you have challenged the environment enough and you are comfortable, and not to say that you will be a victim. I'm just saying we have got to empower ourselves. And data tells us that we mostly not paid like our male counterparts. And I'm saying, you know, it kind of became a reality for me in terms of my own observations. And then some of the things that I'm saying perhaps could lead and speed up some of the progress for ourselves within these corporate structures. So I'll just leave it there, Gugu, and pick up as we go along. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Thuto. I love what you said at the ending. It was quite interesting because I recently watched a YouTube video, right? And this woman had said that usually what we find that some of the reason for wage gaps is because when male counterparts are offered the initial salary, they will usually say, but no, you know, I deserve more. And then they find that with women, they don't really feel the need that, okay, you know, can I ask for more? And they just take whatever it is they had. And usually you find that the employer will be starting at like the very, very bottom of what they can actually give you. So I guess that would beg the question as to why is it maybe that women do not feel like, you know, they have the space to ask for a better salary if they really feel like, you know, they deserve better, and they can see that someone who's working the exact same amount, the exact same as them, is earning better, but they are not being compensated in the same way. Yes, thank you for that. And to lead us into our next speaker, and perhaps she can also maybe touch on, you know, the diversity and the inclusion part in, you know, a woman struggling to find a mentor in her organization because, you know, she can't find people that she relates to will be Ms. Busisiwe Sithole, and she is the ABSA Group Transformation, Diversity and Inclusion Head. And she will just be like taking us through her initial views on what it means to be a woman in leadership as well. So welcome to you, Ms. Busisiwe, and yes, welcome, and may you please take us through your initial thoughts.
Good afternoon, everyone. I must highlight that I am absolutely excited to be part of this conversation this afternoon. I am a mother, I am a woman, I am a leader, I am a sister, and I am an African. You probably have noticed that I have changed my location and I'm now in my car. It's mainly because today is my son's birthday, so we are at Papachino's, for him to enjoy himself with his friends, and that is just showing who we are as people. That often when you speak about leaders in companies, people expect you to be somebody who does not have life. To remove yourself from who you are as a mother, remove yourself from who you are as a friend, a woman, and the like, and to become a man. So, just this very same situation that I'm explaining right now, that I am, in a restaurant, being a mother and making sure that as I'm a leader, I'm also embracing the fact that I'm a mother, and my son does not feel as though me being a leader comes before him. And that just touches on what I want to focus on, which is the diverse perspectives, diverse skills, diverse nature that women bring into the corporate world. So one of the things that I want to touch on is that I do not see women, I'm always hearing women empowerment. I do not see women as people who actually need to be empowered, because I believe women bring a whole lot into organizations and actually in the societies where they are, in a sense that there is a whole lot of skills that we're having, there is a whole lot of character that we actually bringing to the organizations and bringing our diverse selves into the organizations. And therefore it's time for us to actually acknowledge the fact that we are actually a talent. So one of the things that I always tell leaders who are joining the companies where I am, I'm responsible for transformation, diversity and inclusion in one of the banks. I can mention at ABSA. And one of the things that I always mention is that women need to start recognizing the fact that they are a talent. And when you are a talent, it means that you're not making any organization a favor by you joining that organization. The organization actually needs you. And the minute we start recognizing the fact that we've got something to add to enable the organization to achieve its strategy, to achieve whatever they want to achieve, for them to exist, that's the time where we'll start being undermined. This thing of being, stop this thing of being undermined, and stop this thing of always being seen as people who need to be empowered, people who need to be uplifted before we can actually start adding value. So that's the premise of my initial thoughts. And secondly, I know we need to talk about the solutions, but it is important for us to acknowledge where we are as human beings, to acknowledge the fact that in South Africa alone, we are still experiencing the issue of racial discrimination. We are still finding ourselves in situations where we have, as Black women, for example, we have to fight for who we are, how we look like in terms of, our hair, our clothes and everything else. You guys are aware of, for example, the cliques matter that just arose, where we are undermined as Black women in terms of how we look like. How we look like is seen as something that needs to be fixed or something that is not good enough. And I would like to mention that that is one of the things that we are experiencing as people in the organizations where we are working. The reality is that because of our history, we're still fighting the struggles around the racial diversity. We also fight in the gender diversity related issues, where as a woman you still need to work twice as hard compared to your fellow males, and you have to always prove yourself that you're actually good enough. And on top of that, so you are dealing with the racial issues, you're dealing with the gender issues. On top of that, you are also dealing with the fact that you are perhaps coming from the rural areas like myself. I was raised in the rural areas, and for me to actually rise, one of the obstacles that I have experienced is the fact that the minute people hear that you are actually a rural girl, they start boxing you and putting you in a certain box that says, okay, you're not good enough compared to, you know, those that are from the suburbs or those that have grown up in the suburbs. So as I'm mentioning all these things so that you can understand that there are these obstacles. However, these obstacles do not mean that you will not be able to make it to be, you know, at the highest level you want to be. And I'm one of those people that I'm saying, you know, I have experienced all these things. I still do actually, in an environment where you go into the boardroom and your fellow Black sister actually undermines you because she heard that you went to Batlaloha Secondary School and she went to St. Mary's, you know. So these are the battles that you're fighting in the organizations. But what I can say in terms of how I have actually achieved what I've achieved today, I'm a leader, I'm an executive in a very big company, and I own my own business as well. And there's a number of things that I've achieved over my careers. And it's one of the things that contribute to that is the fact that I never lost myself. You know, in every place where I go, people know who I am. And part of being who I am is that I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, I'm an African. I am proud to have grown in the rural areas because that also contributes to the upliftment or even to the development or even to the growth of the companies where I'm working. One of the things that I also say as well is that 78% of economically active population, which is the people who are working, the people who are consumers, the people who are making all these organizations to be successful, are Black people, 78% in South Africa, which means that we as Black people, we've got the power to actually make or break these organizations. And the minute you start realizing that you're not just the consumer, nobody's making you a favor by you going to a company and purchase whatever they're selling or using their services, you're actually making them a favor because of you, they are able to grow. And the same as women, you know, in the organizations, they look at what type of services are they going to provide and who are the markets. And just to give an example, Clicks, the very same company that is discriminating against Black women, 60% of their customers are actually Black women, which means that if Black women can say, we are no longer going to Clicks right now, Clicks can come on its knees. So the minute we understand the power that we are having as people, the power that we are having as Black people, the power that we are having as women, and start utilizing that power, that's when we'll start growing as a people, and we'll start growing in terms of our economic growth, our economic prosperity, and actually start to really play a meaningful role in the economy. So let me just stop there. I just wanted to start this conversation to say we need to realize that we're not objects that always need to be empowered. Actually, we do have the power and we need to use it accordingly.
Thank you so much, Busisiwe. Those are powerful words indeed. And I think that links very well with, you know, us, you know, not realizing that we actually do have the power to bring such corporations to their knees whenever, you know, they discriminate against us and whenever, you know, we are required to show up as anyone but ourselves, you know. And I think that goes hand in hand with the mentality thing, that we're not really aware of our own worth because we don't really think that we can do that. And so we stay in a position of, okay, I am a victim and I can't do this and I can't do that. And all right, I'm going to just lead on to our next speaker now, Ms. Ubalibechi Makua, and she is the CEO of Ori Professionals, and she describes herself as a woman who believes in like conversation as a way in which we can come as a way in which we can progress. And she's just going to be speaking to us on what she thinks of perhaps a subtopic that ties all of the other subtopics together, which is being a woman in society in general. Ms. Walibechi, welcome, and yeah, over to you.
So when I initially got this theme in the 3 themes, I was like, wow, it's so broad. And I was like, okay, let me go check what women are in the society of South Africa. And I looked at the history that we come from. So let me say pre-apartheid, not pre-apartheid, that's too far, apartheid, pre-democracy. And looking at the rights that we did not have at that point in terms of access to even just housing, like we couldn't buy houses unless you were married. Certain jobs were only reserved for men. And in that situation, it was worse because it was only Black men. And then we were on a hierarchy and we were at the bottom of the barrel. And we couldn't vote. There were many things we just couldn't do. We were just not free. We couldn't exercise our will as and how we wished. But like our ancestors and our parents, the gumption that they had, they made a plan to make sure that all of that came to an end. And so apartheid came to an end. So we came from a position of just not participating in the economy. Our participation was just limited. The rights that we had were just limited. And when eventually our wonderful ancestors did us a big favor and they were willing to face bullets, died, sacrificed themselves, their will, their everything, to make sure that we didn't have to go through that, so too did the new laws that were written. And the first dispensation that was democratically elected was appointed, and Parliament was reconstituted, being, the first Parliament that actually had Black people say in it. And then the laws were written. The laws were rewritten to say, what must the Constitution look like? What must everything look like? I'm fortunate enough that my mom was one of the people that were the writers of those laws. So she was working for the Speaker's House at the time. So the Constitution that you see today, she part actually typed it. So for a lot of laws that I look at that were written, my mom gives me like the down low of what happened before the law came. So when you look at equity laws, we were able to access education. You could access education, you could do whatever you want, whenever you want. We could access financing, we could access housing. Even the Marriage Act, including customary marriage and recognizing it, was to protect the men that were married to rural women and then left that rural area and then went to work in urban areas and ended up marrying someone else, to have them recognized so that they could have equal access to those assets. Even those were written in an effort to empower and to protect and to promote the fact that we exist. And basically, I think, honestly, if you look at the stats of how much we've progressed in terms of education, how many women-led houses there are, how many positions we occupy, we made tremendous progress. I think the women of that generation, and I think I'm part of them because I belong to the class that was first attending school in non-apartheid circumstances. So in 1995, I was the grade 1 child. So we took guns blazing. I mean, they said go to school, we went to school. They said work, we worked. They say, even those who were working, they said have a voice, we had a voice. The labor laws were also changed to make sure that things like sexual harassment, you name it, you were able to go, and the labor laws like skewly favor the employee in the way that they're written. And if you want to, you can go guns blazing, you can take there's no company too big or too small. that cannot be confronted if you're going through an issue of whether it's sexual harassment, you're not getting equal pay, you are not being promoted accordingly. There isn't a law that is not there. So we're given resources from here to Timbuktu. And when I looked at how we're participating in the economy now, given everything that we have, we are 2060, I think this is our 26th year of democracy. There were still things like that I saw, as I think Thuto mentioned, we're lacking in senior management executive going up roles. There's still companies more owned by men than women. There's still here and there where you see that somehow we're not occupying. Then I saw in the stats that there was an interesting stat that was collected as they were doing the normal stats that were gender-based, that 2/3 of the reason why women are saying they are not participating in the market. Please note the limitations of statistics, but we all acknowledge the science of statistics and how it works. It's a sample. Obviously, the question is the question. They asked a certain group of people. So with those limitations in mind, it was recorded that 2/3 of them are still not participating in the market because of a choice, and that being the fact that they would rather be homemakers than actually find themselves working or anything. And only 1/3 was actually discouraged. So the other categories were either students, or they were ill, or they were either too old or too young. But in general, the idea was that they wanted to be homemakers instead of actually participating in the market. Now, with everything I just said, I actually wanted in this discussion, because initially when I was given the topic and the theme, I was asked to maybe address themes around gender-based violence, toxic masculinity, misogyny, and all of that. And I didn't want to talk about women based on the crimes that they have to suffer. I wanted to talk about ourselves, like, why is it that we find ourselves in gender-based violence in relationships? Why do we find ourselves? Why do we have children that are not necessarily protected, even though we are matriarchs in our respective families? Why is it that in the workplace, when there's sexual harassment, why is there a tendency to keep quiet and have other women suffer the same fate and end up having a whole group of women in the same place, in the same organization, who know they're suffering from sexual harassment and don't band up together and say, we are going to fight sexual harassment in this workplace together? Why is it sometimes that we have feminine toxicity or toxic femininity? Why is it that we don't necessarily always support each other? Why is it that sometimes we're desperate to be in certain relationships even though they're not healthy for us? Why do we judge each other for making our own choices? Like those who choose to be homemakers, why don't we celebrate them just as much as we celebrate the ones that are in corporate? Why don't we encourage it that you can be a homemaker and not necessarily be in corporate? And you can choose to do both, or you can only choose to be one of. We don't celebrate our diversity. Also, why is it that in situations where we are victimized, we don't take advantage of the person, the weakness that the person who's victimizing us? So the person who's victimizing us, why don't we take the weakness that we see in them and actually use it to our advantage? And why we are not doing the things, the many other little things between ourselves as women to move ourselves to the next stage. I've always been raised that we have a diverse set of skills. Like we can be masculine one day, feminine the next day, and society accepts it either way. And we are very strong. We're resilient. We're flexible. And yeah, I just feel that we talk a lot about the things that happen to us, and we don't talk enough about how we react to them and how we can better react to them and how we can use ourselves as a network to change the things or change the environments that we're in when we find ourselves. I'm a business owner. I founded my company straight after qualifying as a CA. In essence, I don't know what it means to work for someone else except for my traineeship. I find that when I walk into a lot of boardrooms, I don't meet other women. Forget that there's another woman who's judging me. She's just not there, period. I find that in looking for opportunities, because I work in collaboration with many people from different faculties, whether science, engineering, law, whatever it is, that when I approach a woman and I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity, it's a risk. Can I please use your CV and we can work on this together if the opportunity is realized? I often get more resistance from women than I do from men. So it's just those different dynamics, like in how we relate to each other. There's a friendship and a sisterhood that has been, I think, lacking or has been lost. And I think that's why we find ourselves maybe still climbing or maybe still getting, not that we haven't done a lot. I don't think anyone can remove what women have done, the importance of a woman in any society. We've done a lot. We're still raising, we are a lot. We have done a lot. But yeah, that's basically my initial thoughts on the topic. And without spending too much time talking, let's I think open the conversation.
Thank you for that, Balibeji. There's quite a few questions that you asked in your opening remarks, such as, you know, why is it that we have feminine toxicity, and why is it that we cannot celebrate our own diversity in the choices that we want to make as women? And I think those are questions that I will pose right back to you after yes, that after we ask this first question from the poll. So this is a question for Ms. Thuto, and it says that she mentioned how a male colleague at the same level as her was seen to be living a better life than her, suggesting that he was probably getting a higher pay. So this is a problem in the corporate world. So if we ever find ourselves in a situation like this, how do we go about challenging it? And I think this is a very important question for, you know, with the majority of the audience being students who will soon find ourselves in the corporate world, and you're not like being new and not knowing how exactly to deal with such things, because, you know, you want to keep your job, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to be going through things that you can see are clearly wrong. So just to re-emphasize the question, how, if ever we find ourselves in such a situation, how do we go about challenging it? Over to you, Thuto.
Thanks, Gugu. Look, it's a difficult question, because often with these things, you just have got to understand the type of audience that you are dealing with, and also sort of at least truly understand also your worth, you know. Now, I think for me, we almost have to go with, and this is what data tells us, with a bit of a suspicion that we don't have general equal pay to men. So the first offer that you get, I think it should be challenged on whether you can get more, you know, but I say that with a slight caution, because as I'm saying, you always just have got to do it with understanding the audience, but also over and above understanding the audience. You know, when you start out, and I'm assuming here a number of the people then are pursuing maybe the CA route. When you're doing your articles, honestly, I doubt there would really be differences at that level, because you're just really being paid to be trained. But after that, and here you've now gained, you know, enough sort of knowledge in the craft that you're in. You understand, and hopefully you can also empower yourself, perhaps, to understand, and these are maybe statistics that is usually available from, say, headhunters or recruiters and whatnot. You can easily give a call to them, say, somebody who is at my level with my experience, you know, what is the market paying out there? So at least you are equipped with the facts, you know? And so when you go and negotiate, you kind of know what the minimum is. But then I often also, and I think as I grew a little bit of maturity into my own personal journey, and having gotten maybe specific intellectual capital on myself, I often then negotiated not on what I got paid, but negotiated on the value of the job that's in front of me, because that you're not paying me because I know that maybe my history may not necessarily be in a very good footing. I may not have had enough confidence when I started out my career to actually negotiate outright, but I've sort of, you know, now, as I'm saying, I've gained a couple of things as I went along, and now I actually want to be paid for the value of the job and not necessarily where I have been. So it is a tricky question, and I'm not addressing it maybe very, very well, but perhaps maybe I can just summarize it with two things. Know what really the market is paying, and this data is available from recruiters, headhunters, and so on. And then also demand your pay based on the value of what you are basically doing. And as I'm saying, be suspicious. The first offer that you get is often discounted. So challenge that particular first offer, but with a bit of intellect, as I'm saying, with a little bit of intellect of what really is the market offering for this type of job and experience.
Thank you, Thuto. Thank you. What I noted from there is, you know, you said challenge, but challenge with intellect. So what I think that may be found in a lot of cases is that, like, you will know that the market rates for what I'm supposed to be paid and what I'm actually being paid are still, you know, not the same. However, you're not really gonna have that confidence to say, let me challenge this, you know. And perhaps I think that it's still a mental thing. And with that being said, I'd like to go back to Ms. Busisiwe Sithole. She said quite a profound thing that I think basically challenged, you know, the premise of this whole conversation. You know, she said something along the lines of women do not need empowerment, right? And I think that I would really like for her to please just elaborate that, you know, if not empowerment, then what? Because I think what we hear a lot, you know, in such conversations is that we need to empower each other. Women need empowerment, women empowerment, women empowerment. So if she say not empowerment, then what do we need? Or what is, how can I put it? Or in what way can we see it then? Yeah, over to you, Ms. Busisiwe.
Gugu, call me Busisiwe, not Miss Busisiwe.
Oh, sorry.
I am old, but not that old. Okay, so basically what I meant when I said that women do not need empowerment was the fact that there's nothing special that we require that males don't require. So let me just give an example in terms of, you know, a black male who actually, you know, went through everything that I went through, went to the same kind of school that I went through, went to the same kind of university that I went through, and is my age. So we both have experienced the same kind of challenges, and we're still in the same kind of an environment. So there's nothing special that gentleman that I went to school with is bringing to the company that I'm working for that I can't bring. So basically what I mean is that we need to start focusing on the strengths that we are bringing as women to each and every environment where we go to, whether it's the home environment or whether it's at work or whether it's in terms of business. So in the past, the opportunities that were there were definitely favoring white people compared to black people. They were favoring males compared to women. But currently, things have changed. So for me, I actually feel that women have got more opportunities than males. In a sense that there are laws, Balibeji spoke about the equity laws. The equity laws are actually specifically focusing on, for example, in terms of internally, there is an Employment Equity Act, which specifically mentioning that companies need to focus on increasing the representation of women within the companies, which means that we are actually getting more preference in terms of how companies hire. So companies these days, they hire more women than males. So in that sense, I don't think that with the opportunities that we're having, we can still legitimately say that we need to be empowered, because the grounds are now level. In fact, they're even better compared to our fellow males who went through the same things that we went through. So what I wanted to actually say is that we need to start taking cognizance of the fact that the power lies within us. The power lies from, naturally, before you even go to the qualifications that you are bringing, because a whole lot of women these days are, it's very rare that you would find in a company a Black woman who has not studied at university. So before you even get there, we need to take cognizance of the fact that you are actually, just the fact that you are a woman, you are actually bringing something to the table. I made an example in terms of clicks. So let me just make things to be more practical. So in an environment, in a corporate environment, each and every company has got a strategy, a business strategy that says, as a business, what are we working towards? So for example, if, most of the companies have got a growth strategy where they want to grow, where they want to have more customers, where they want to, have a bigger pie, basically, in terms of business compared to their competitors. So when you look at that alone, women constitute the majority of people who are economically active in South Africa, which then means that when you are a woman within the company, you are actually better positioned to understand the majority of the customers that those companies have, because you are a woman and majority of those customers are women. So naturally, you understand the customers, majority of the customers that the companies have, and you bring that to the table. So just taking it to the next level of the products, for example, if we are saying that majority is women, it means that the companies are actually supposed to create the products and services that are more suitable for women, because those women are the ones that are, majority of the customers are women. So it's important for corporates to be more competitive. The first thing that they need to do is to understand their customers so that they can be relevant to service those customers. And them being relevant, it means that they need to actually, have somebody who is, if it's about developing the products, somebody who actually understands the people that you are developing the products for. And if you are a woman and majority of the customers are women, it means you actually, understand majority of those customers, which means that you're actually more valued, or you're bringing more to the table to help that company to understand its customers more. And the more you understand your customers, the more you actually become competitive compared to, your competitors. And the more you start growing, and the more you start, making more money or more profit. So just looking at businesses themselves and looking at where we are as a country, that on its own give us a competitive advantage as women, because we are bringing more to the table, and we're actually helping those companies to grow. So know yourself, know who you are personally as a person. Do not be derailed by all these challenges that you're experiencing and start losing yourself. If I'm coming in and I am speaking the English that sounds like a rural English, it's fine. Majority of the people do hear me, what I'm trying to say, I don't have to try and speak like the queen, because the queen is not here, and the queen is not a customer of the company where I'm working. So it doesn't really matter, you know, what kind of English I'm speaking. So we need to focus on the right things and move away from focusing on the things that don't really matter. You know, be comfortable in your own skin, be authentic. People want to engage with people who understand and are comfortable in their own space. The minute you start to be somebody else, then you're losing it. You know, there's a saying that there's no one who can be the better version of you than yourself. So women needs to understand the power that they are carrying, and that's where I was coming from.
Thank you so much for that. So what I would take away from this mostly is know yourself, know who you are, and be authentic in your own space. And, you know, no matter what all the outside forces tell you, you know, try to remain as authentic as you can possibly be within yourself. So our next question is to Ubalibeji. So she has said that there's no sisterhood between us females. So what steps has she as a business owner taken in order to try and rectify this issue? And I think that this can also be a question that is asked to all of our panelists, you know, also Thuto, Busisiwe, and Tsholofelo, that in your own spaces, have you, you know, witnessed something like this where I think as Thuto mentioned, that even like the females among you, you know, will not wish you well and stuff. So how have you in your own space tried to deal with this and rectify it? Thank you.
So I'm gonna try to tackle it in all environments that I operate in. So I think as a sister, because I have a sister, I've always been honest with her. I've always been honest with her. That's my pledge, and I've always been loyal to her. So and loyalty is not just I will keep your secrets, but loyalty is I will be the person who reminds you of the person you said you were when you lose your way. So I also keep her accountable, and she may not like it a lot. Apparently I'm a bully in this house. So in my house, I'm always called the bully. So, and even with my mother, as a daughter to my mother, I always ask her the difficult questions. Maybe she's created an environment where we are more relaxed and we're free. I always ask her the difficult questions and be like, Mom, why did you choose Dad? Why were you in love with him? You know, like we talk about everything. We promise each other that even when I tell you something that hurts, that you will not hold it against me. And even though you're hurt, you'll always come back. And even as a friend, that's exactly what I'm like. I commit to the fact that I'll be loyal to you and I'll always try to be there for you, even though we are breaking down. We can break down in so many ways. And my friendships have broken down in various types of ways. I always commit to the fact that I will be the last one to give up between the two of us. So, and that's a hard thing to do. Like it means somewhere you don't have pride, somewhere you give person a second, a third, or fourth chance. Somewhere you're always doing in our workspace. So ours is still a very small company. So we're only 4 permanent employees, but we're 50-50. It's 50 male, 50 female. And in our company, we keep the same type of spirit. We're going to be honest with each other. We fight, we shout. It gets very uncomfortable a lot of the times. But being transparent and honest and committed to each other is what we do. So even where, you know, a friend will betray me, I always try to prioritize the fact that I said I'm committed and I'm a friend, and I said I would stick to what I say. And even when I was in the workspace, so I didn't feel sexism as much as I felt racism. So in my workspace, for those who have worked with me, there was never a moment that I kept quiet. If I saw somebody else suffering or whatever it is, I will never put my fears of the fact that, oh my word, how will they perceive me? Will they think I'm just this loudmouth? Will they, will they think I'm just this one who's always trying to start drama? Will they always think, I put that completely aside, because in life you have to choose what you say you will stand for and actually follow through. So in my space, and I think in life we fear retribution more than we fear what is right. And that's how we land up in situations where children are victimized, women are victimized, whatever it is, people are victimized because there's good people who sit by and they do nothing. And we need all just, there was a movie I watched quite a long time ago. And there was something that the father was telling their daughter, I think, and he said that all you need is 20 seconds of courage. Like, you just need 20 seconds to do what's right, to do what's important. And after that, it's already done. And then the rest is just natural because you've gotten past just that difficult position. So in my space, you have to set a standard for yourself. You have to stick with it. You have to commit to other people. You have to mean it. You shouldn't just say, yeah, I committed to you, whatever. We shouldn't take those connections and friendships for granted. Like, we should put effort to fight for them. So for me, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter, I'm not yet a mother, I'm not yet a wife. I have always committed to saying, you come to me, you tell me who you are, you tell me who you wish to be, and I, as your friend, will be witness and keep you accountable even when it's the hardest day. I will keep you accountable even on that day. And I think if we have more of that integrity, man, that thing of just sticking to your word. I think my friend and I were watching an episode of The Good Fight, and there was a situation where a judge said he would always be an honorable judge, and then the first bribe he got, or the first threat he got, he buckled, and we're just irritated by the fact that he just didn't stick to his guns. And that's it. Just stick to your word. Be loyal, be transparent, be honest, and don't compromise those bonds over stupid things like pay promotions, this and that, and whatever. Like, there are more important things in this world that we need to achieve. And I think my commitment to that is what I do in my personal space, whether it's work, even with a client. Like, when a client doesn't know, but when I meet a client, in my head, between us as a team in a company, we commit to the fact that this is what this project is going to look like when we get out. And no matter how hard it gets, no matter how many obstacles we get, no matter what pushback, we always make sure that at the end, the picture is what we envision. So just sticking to the word and sticking to what you say you will do and committing to it, and not giving up so easily just because it's hard. I think that's what I think we could all do a bit more of.
Thank you so much, Baliwej. I think perhaps to add in, not really add in my 2 cents, but just add a span in the works, perhaps that the other speakers can also elaborate on. You speak a lot of committing to others and making sure that, you stick to that commitment. But I would have to ask you that, in order to be able to commit to others, how much do you have to first commit to yourself? And how would you get to the point where you are so committed to yourself first? Because I believe that, a lot of these issues where we break our bonds over silly things like, we sabotage each other and we do all of these silly things that break our bonds between people are because of the issues that we have within ourselves. So yeah, with that being said, I will just throw the question onto the other speakers. I would like to start with Tsholofelo. Tsholofelo?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I'm going to answer the second one, which is, how do we commit to others? So I believe that we, as people, we cannot give from an empty cup. Just as you said, that you must first commit yourself. And when you're content with how you are and you feel like you're in a good position to commit with others, it's then that you can give to others. And with the first question that you said, in terms of how do I make sure that I create the sisterhood within my circle and also outside. So I'm a firm believer of communicating, because if you communicate your feelings about something, it fixes a lot, it avoids a lot of conflict, a lot of things. So if my friend does something to me, I communicate that this is not what I liked about what you did, and we move on from that. So that's how I believe in sisterhood, through communication. If we communicate everything and we are transparent about things, then it actually takes us forward as people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsolo. Thuto, over to you.
This mute business is tricky. Yeah, and I'm probably grappling with the question here because, again, I do become quite careful, as I said, I think when I started, just at least in my own head, try not to deal with maybe specific narratives of, we do pull sort of each other down or anything like that. So I truly believe in me doing the best that I can in order to almost lead by example, because I look maybe forward to then say, who are the people that inspired me as a person? It really is the people that were doing certain things, or that succeeded in specific facets in their lives, and all I just wanted perhaps is, whilst I remain being Thuto, I just know that certain things are possible because I've seen them sort of do it to some degree. So I truly believe in personally working hard and hopefully inspiring my daughter one day, working hard and achieving certain things, inspiring my nieces, and hopefully to inspire the next person to know that it is sort of possible. And I think that for me, it really is the fundamental of perhaps the sisterhood, of let me do my part. And in doing my part, hopefully it just does inspire somebody to know that it is possible. I'm no way to say, I am totally high achieved or where I want to be personally. But every day I'm working on that, and hopefully, as I'm saying, that energy, somebody else, those that are around me, and another child, and I think Busisiwe refers to a village. I think most of us either come from a village or a township. Somebody else who feels stuck in a situation can then also really believe that it's possible. So that probably is my little bit of definition of what sisterhood could be. Do your part and don't be a stumbling block to anybody, but do your part to basically inspire other people. And maybe it speaks directly to your second question of then how do you commit to others before you commit to you? And I'm saying the way that I view it is first commitment to myself in order to inspire behind the ones that are around me. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Thuto. And over to you, Busisiwe. Your mic is muted. Please unmute.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. I'm saying in the restaurant where I am, because my son is still playing, and obviously I'm still doing this. They are looking at me and thinking, what's wrong with this woman? So I'm just walking around and getting in the right place, because in the car my laptop was dying, so I'm charging it But this is part of being agile, and this is part of being a leader. So when you're a leader, you need to be able to adjust to every environment where you are and make it work, rather than wanting to always fit in with the environment, and sometimes it becomes an obstacle. So in terms of sisterhood specifically, we have, and when I'm saying we, I'm talking about the company that I work for. So I want to bring this home and make it practical in terms of how companies are addressing this. So one of the initiatives that I've recently established is a campaign called a She for She. So basically what we are saying in our organization is that women need to start realizing that it's not okay to be the only woman in the boardroom. A lot of women for a long time have been comfortable to be the only ones on the table. So for us as women to start, making a difference as well as an impact as women, we need to recognize that we need to be there for one another. And one of the things that we have done through the She for She is to actually establish, sponsorship program where women at executive level have, young women that they are mentoring and young women that they're sponsoring and showing the way in terms of, their careers growing. And to take it to a very personal level, one of the things that I have picked up, over the years as I went up, is the fact that it's tough out there. It's the higher you go, the colder it becomes. So it's very easy for you as a person to be absorbed with what you're going through. It's very easy to actually feel like, there's so much that I need to do. There's so much that I need to work on in order for me to prove myself that I'm capable as a woman. And there's so much that I'm fighting in the boardroom as a woman, to an extent that you can end up just focusing on that and forgetting that actually you've got a responsibility. The fact that you're in that position, you've got a responsibility to change things so that the women that are coming after you, do not have to go through the same thing. And secondly, as we go up, a lot of women have got a tendency of actually forgetting that there is somebody who is looking up to them. And when I'm saying that, I basically mean that if you know that there's somebody who's looking up to you, you will also pay attention to that person. So one of the things that I always talk about is in terms of a decision that women need to make when they become leaders, to say, what kind of leader do I want to be? There's different types of leadership, and you guys probably have started to learn that, because at university already you're taught about, they are transformational leaders, they are authoritative leaders, they democratic. There's a whole lot of leadership styles. So what I have done is that I have intentionally made a decision that my type of leadership is going to be one of a transformational leadership, because my objective, in fact, I don't think I shared this. My purpose in life, I believe that what I've come here to do, and when I'm saying here, I mean here on earth, is to actually transform the environment where I am. And my purpose in life is to ensure that I enable Africa to thrive. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is the fact that you have got Africa that owns so many minerals. You have got Africa that owns so many resources. Hence, a whole lot of nations come to Africa because they know that we are a very rich continent. But the unfortunate part of things is the fact that Africans do not own any of those things. So for us to start being heard, because we are not heard, a lot of people are not listening to us because we do not own. I mean, there's a whole lot of conversations that you would hear that actually says to you, all you are just a consumer. You are here to just buy, consume. You are a worker. You just come, you work, and then you move along. And your children will do the same. one of the things I'm advocating is for Africans to start realizing that we need to start owning. We need to start owning, and you cannot own if you do not have the power to actually own. And I'm saying we do have that power. So let me just go back. I've got so many things in my head that I might end up being derailed. Let me go back to the sisterhood and finalize my thinking. So as women, we need to realize that the more we go up and leave the rest of the women behind, we are actually making things difficult for ourselves, because it means that it will be lesser voices up there, and the more the voices are, the more they become audible. The more women occupy those positions up there, the more we bring up more women, the more our voices will start being recognized, and the more we'll start making meaningful contribution to these companies. Because when you're at a higher level, that's when you've got the decision-making power. We can be a whole lot of us there, but if you do not have the power to make decisions, you know, it doesn't really change things much. So we need to be more, we need to realize that we need to bring each other up. We need to also start becoming accessible. Most leaders, as they go up, they are not accessible. You know, somebody who's at a lower level is scared to approach us because, you know, we are these women who have arrived, and, you know, for you to come and speak to me, you must go through my PA, and you can't speak to me, you know, in the corridors. We need to let go of that, because it's not making us any favor as women. It's not making us any favor as Black people. We need to be accessible. And for us to be accessible, you don't stand there and say, hey, I'm accessible. People need to see your walk. People need to see your talk, you know, what you're saying, how you are portraying yourself, and actually just you being you should say to people, actually, that person, I'm relating with her story. I can understand, I can relate to her as a person, I can relate to her as a woman, and therefore I can be able to access her and go to her and say, hey, can you be my mentor? Or hey, can you help me on this and that? But for as long as we are continuing as you go, you're like, I have arrived, as long as my family is doing well, I am fine. We're not going anywhere as a nation. So we need to stop doing that and start being she for she's. And that's the only way that we will be heard as women. The more, you know, even Mandela has said it, together, when you are together, you are more powerful. But when you're alone up there and you feel like you have arrived alone, it's easy for them to remove you quite quickly. So let's be together and let's unite and use the collective power that we have as women, the collective power that we have as Black people to start changing things. Thank you.
Wow, those are some really, really powerful words indeed. She for she, and lifting as we rise, and still doing so with authenticity. And I'd like to go on to our next question. Thank you so much for that, Busisiwe. And this is basically a follow-up on what you and Balibaji mentioned, that, you know, women get preference in terms of employment. And the question is, would it be fair to say that by doing this, they I guess the employers are advantaging a system that we are to destroy, that people should be employed based on what skills they can offer, and not because of any race or gender? Yeah, that is the question. I think Baliweji or Busisiwe, you can briefly go first on answer that.
I don't know. I think to say that the laws must not be deliberate in saying we are going to prefer Black, we're going to prefer women, we're going to, if the laws are not deliberate in the intention, I think then we are ignoring entirely the history of the world. So, and it's not my problem today that the history of the world is what it is. But the laws are acknowledging that where we come from was a place where things were not level and one group was favored over the other. So in an attempt to balance the scale, we are going to try and sort of push one's agenda until such time we balance the scale. I think people must remember how laws come about. So before a law even arrives at Parliament, there is a bunch of social scientists that actually study a phenomena. So if there's an issue of women are not in managerial position, whatever, they study a phenomena. They look to why is a certain thing happening. And after that certain thing is happening, they then propose that we should try and fix this certain thing that's happening when the law arrives at the table. Now, the reason we vote the way we vote, so it goes by percentage. The people you vote for the party that represents your values, is that when a law comes or a policy comes to try and fix a phenomena which relates to me, the human being, that phenomenon, the people that I actually voted for will vote in accordance to what I would otherwise do. I would otherwise vote. There is a world where we no longer need a law that deliberately pushes for a specific agenda. That world will come when the society that does the voting every year decides that, nah, we don't need to prioritize that anymore. So until then, I think we can be patient and just wait for the scales to just balance up a bit, because otherwise we are entirely ignoring the history that we come from, and it would not be fair. The laws are trying to establish a system of fairness. The way capitalism has been run, the way that it was favoring one party over another, the way colonialism happened, the way slavery happened, and all of these things happened, you have to acknowledge them. To have laws that don't acknowledge them would be honestly to not recognize that we need to heal. The law deliberately saying that you must hire a woman is one portion of me healing from the years of trauma that we come from. So it's one portion of a society healing from the years of trauma that they come from, and from the trauma that caused the disparity to begin with. It's the same as restitution, land restitution. We have to balance the scale. We cannot live in a country where 80% are Black and the 80% that own the land belong to only 20% of the group. It does not make sense. Something must not be right. There will be an inequitability of access to resources. We have to acknowledge the past that happened. And I think as far as if you compare how Germany dealt with the Holocaust, like the way the laws in Germany work when it comes to stuff related to the Holocaust, and the way the laws work in South Africa in relation to what happened in apartheid, I mean, we're being quite nice. I feel like we're being decent people. And it's not too much to ask for the laws to be deliberate so that we can all acknowledge what happened. To say that we must not have a law that is deliberate is to say, you know, we just popped into this, we are here now. And I think it would be irresponsible for anyone to not want to do that. But I think I'm done before I go on for too long.
Gugu, you muted.
Thank you so much. I keep forgetting. So this is a question just, you know, from myself, in that I don't remember who mentioned it, but the question is basically, you know, what role do, you know, since Balibeji is saying that, you know, such things come from a society deciding that, you know, now it's time for us to change, you know, and to enforce these laws. And we know that society is made up of both men and women, and that women's issues are an issue of society, and they don't only affect women, but they also affect men, and they also need for all of us, men and women, to, you know, gather behind them. And in the words of in the words of the book Lean In by Ms. Cheryl from the COO of Facebook, she says that the more women help one another, the more we help ourselves. That in acting as coalition truly does produce results. And any coalition of support must also include men, many of whom care about gender inequality as much as women do. So I'd like to hear from yourselves that, you know, what do you think is the active role that men can play in, you know, ensuring that the women of future generations do not have to go through what the problems that we are going through, or even trying to, you know, with the issues that already exist, trying to be allies in the fight against all of these injustices against women. And I would like to start off with yourself, Thuto, and just give us a response.
Gugu, I think the interesting observation, we recently just saw Vodacom come out with a policy saying that they have changed their policy such that they can give their men in the organization the same amount of maternity leave that women get. That for me is one of probably some of the small wins that we can have as a society, because the way that our society, and we spoke about the statistics in the beginning, and that for me, as I said, it kind of then starts us to talk about the narrative of where we are. And now let's understand what that gap is and why the gap, because we talk about women who are choosing to perhaps be homemakers. We talk about women that, you know, kind of fall off the rails and we don't see them in the boardrooms. And I just think the way that society is kind of maybe laid out, it is really still favoring men to do what they do in terms of work, because if a man doesn't, and going back to the Vodacom example, if a man is not given the same maternity leave as a woman, basically it is indicating that you've got 4 days once your child is born and you must go back to work. So who's going to mind the child? It obviously then dictates that me as an executive in an organization, I must look after the child, because you know what? My husband doesn't have the same sort of leave that that I have to some degree. And you talk about Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, and I think that Lean In book, Gugu, that you talk about was one of the probably empowering stories for me as a person. And the reason it really empowered me, I started, when you start out as a young career woman, you just think, oh, these things are all in your head. It is just your character, and you don't realize that actually some of these issues are societal issues and most probably affect women in a very similar manner. She talks about specifically having a very supportive husband who was a house husband. Well, not maybe a house husband, sorry, who was maybe very hands-on in terms of the family and the home. He would actually, we've got mums and tots in South Africa, and I took it that maybe it might not be an exact mums and tots, but he would be the guy that takes the child to mums and tots, and guess what? It's called mums and tots. It's not called mom, dads, and tots, So he would already kind of get the stares when he gets to these type of things, because majority of the people that are there are women, and almost also get the unnecessary glory of, oh my goodness, you're doing such a good job. You're just doing your job. You're a parent, for crying out loud, like the woman is. But he kind of gets a bit of a glory around that. So I think the key thing is just really understanding the nuances that perpetuate some of these decisions that are unsaid, that really get women not necessarily perhaps leading in most parts of society. And I think for me, as I said, the key thing is understanding what happens in between. And I made reference purely because that is my point of reference in corporate. I talk about statistics in corporate specifically to say there seems to be something that does not join up in the middle somewhere, because these people, they start off to all enter the same space, somewhat 50-50, but then we start to see the numbers taper down. And we can say the same thing in various parts of leadership of our society at the moment. Many women in politics, many women participating in various parts of governmental sort of institutions or party leaderships and whatnot. But today in South Africa, we don't have a woman president, and I don't know when we'll have a woman president. It is not to say we are not capable, but I think we really have got to ask ourselves, what are those societal norms that are shaping women to basically put them in their place to some degree, you know, and not get to where they ought to be. And those questions, for me, again, going back to the first narrative that I've made, is not saying that we are victims, realizing everything else that is a possible obstacle and crossing over it to some degree, and starting to ask the right questions for change.
Thank you so much for the response. I'll go over to Tsholo, and I think perhaps can we please keep it like a little bit brief? Time is no longer on our side. Yes, I'll go to Tsholo and then Busisiwe, then Balibeji.
So with me, I think it's like it can be done through a process of unlearning. I think a lot of unlearning that our like males need to do, because we find ourselves in such situations because of like what they have learned over the years in terms of culture, what a man should be like, what a man should act like, how a man should treat a woman. So I feel like if the males can unlearn and know what like the reality is now and what women want now, then it can be easier to now transition into the new perspective that we envision for females and what we want. So I feel like they should try and go through a process of unlearning and reflection to know what they are doing that is not good, or that may seem like it's like patriarchy or something, so that we can move forward. I think it's like that.
Thank you, Tsholo. Busisiwe, in just 2 minutes, please.
You know, Steve Biko once said we need to emancipate ourselves from slavery, and emancipation that he was talking about was mental emancipation. There are a number of questions that we have asked since we started this conversation, and one of the questions that was asked by Thuto was to say, why are we not having a female president? The question that I would ask in answering that is that who actually has voted for the male president? Because majority of the people who have voted for Ramaphosa, the majority of people who have voted for Zuma before Ramaphosa and the like are women. So I think we need to start being free somewhere. There's something that we need to deal with us as women, and emancipate ourselves and our thinking, and really realize. And I'm gonna sound like I'm a broken record because I keep on going back to the power that we're having, and it's because when you look at a lot of things, women, we've got the power to actually change things. You know, majority of the people who were voting for Zuma when ANC was voting Thabo Mbeki out, if you look at the ANC structure, is women, and majority of the people in South Africa who voted are women. So I don't think we need to start looking at ourselves as women and saying, what are we doing wrong? Because a whole lot of things, as much as there is a lot of things that our brothers and husbands and the males are doing, we also have a role that we are playing in us being where we are. And I will also give an example in terms of in the corporate. I mean, one of the things that I always say is that representation of women in the corporate is becoming, it's no longer an issue anymore. You do have companies that have got the chairpersons for the boards. You do have the companies that have got the chairpersons of the remuneration committee. We were talking about women earning less than males, and in a lot of companies, when you look at the executives, the salaries of the executives is not the decision of one person. When an executive is hired, their salary is taken to the remuneration committee of the board. And I don't want to call names, but I'll give an example of one company, which I won't mention because I don't want to expose them. And I always ask myself, what is wrong with that woman? This woman is the chairperson of the remuneration committee. So for you guys who don't understand the structures within the corporate, you've got the board, who's the highest authority in the company. You therefore have got the committees of the board, and these committees help make decisions in terms of a whole number of things. And this company that I'm talking about, it was having two CEOs. One CEO being a white male, the second CEO being a black male. And when they were hiring them together to be, both of them to be CEOs, they said the white CEO is an, what do they call them? The people that come from overseas, there's a word that they use, you guys will help me. That word, that English, yeah, that one. So these people come here so that when they're brought here, the reason that is given is that they've got the skills that our African leaders don't have, or our South African leaders don't have. And then they paired this black CEO with this guy so that this guy can transfer some international skills or whatever. But even on top of that, this black man who was a co-CEO also brought something. And remember what I said earlier on to say, we do have the power in a sense that we understand our market better. Even if that person is bringing some global experience, it doesn't understand the market because the market is South African people, which means that this black CEO that is paired with him actually understand the market even more. And this other CEO was given a salary of 67 million per year, right? And this other CEO, who's a black CEO from South Africa, was given 27 million as a salary. The difference is 40 million. And this is the decision that was made by the board. And guess who was the chairperson of the remuneration committee who actually made this decision? Is a black female. How on earth, you've got the power to make that decision. How on earth do you sign off that kind of a thing? And the same question I would ask and say, you know, when you look in that company, when you look at their employment equity report, you can see that the women are actually earning less. But the person who is in charge of making those decisions is a woman. So that's why I'm saying we need to start looking at ourselves and stop blaming the males, because we've got the power to make these decisions. And when we've got this power and this authority, we are not using it. So again, I'll go back to the same thing that says the laws are there, but we need to understand the role that we need to play as women. We need to understand the role that we need to play and the power that we have in making those decisions as women, as well as Black people. And only then shall we be able to move and progress as women. We've got the power, we've got the authority, but we're not using it. So why do we keep on blaming other people? What else must they do there? They've given us the positions, they've given us the authority to make the decisions, but we're still not making decisions. So let's look at ourselves as well. We've got a role that we are playing in terms of ensuring that we are progressing as a nation.
I think the question was, if I remember correctly, was what can men do in assisting women? And I think I have to echo what Busi just said in terms of how do we raise better people? How do we raise people that are not obstacles? So this is for the instance where a man is an obstacle in progression. He actually exerts his position to make sure that women don't progress, or implement sexual harassment in order for the woman not to progress, or they would have to exchange sex for the actual position for the progression. And I think, how do we raise better people? How do we not promote within our small circles these bad habits, these bad things? How is it when my nephew, the other day, it's a simple example, I was cleaning the pool, he says he was hot, I was cleaning the pool for him so that he can cool off. And I have a rule that as I'm cleaning the pool, do not play with the water because you mess up the dirt and it doesn't work out right. And he played in the water anyway. And I said to him, when I give you an instruction, when I say no, why are you not listening to me? And as an 8-year-old boy, he had to account for his actions and his thoughts. And I had to, in that moment, as an aunt, as a person of influence, exert my belief of why you need to respect the next person's nose. And I think in our households where our personalities are created, majority of our personalities are created, we need to start asking ourselves as mothers, how do we raise better children? Even if you're an aunt, even if you're just a sister, whatever, how do we, as a female person, a female elder to a younger boy, a younger female, how do we raise them better? And I think that's how you start to change some of these things that we say, you know, men are doing this, men are doing that. In my position as a person, I can raise them better. I can call my friend out. If my friend who is my male counterpart who is in a position of power explains the story to me and I think they were being prejudicial in that instance, I can, as a friend, call my friend out. How do I, at work, when I see something that is not fair, how do I call my employer out and not worry so much about my own paycheck or whatever it is? Everything that you want to fix in the world, you have the agency within yourself to make it happen, and you can influence and if you're really dedicated and you're passionate about saying that you want to reduce misogyny, you want to reduce all of these things, you have to make it deliberate in your small space. How do I make my friend aware that he's being misogynistic? How do I make them aware? And honestly, how do I take advantage of the fact that a man may objectify me? How do I take advantage of that situation to still further my objective? There are so many options to look at before you look externally. And starting with the self, and how do I, in my small environment, in my small ways, whichever position I'm in, how do I actually just change the environment that I'm in? That's it. I mean, if anybody meets you, if anyone, a client, a male friend, my male counterparts, none of them think that I'm a victim or I'm less or anything like that. None of them can even believe or think that they can stand in my way because I have chosen to be the person that I occupy the space wherever I am. There was a client who said, even when you walk, he was an old Black man. He's like, when you walk into the room, everything changes. You literally occupy your space. I cannot ignore you. And there's nothing I can do. So it's about more of what can I do looking towards myself? How can I make better decisions? How can I raise better people? How can I advise my friend to let go of bad habits? How can we do that in our small and big spaces? How can we reward the right behavior, even in relationships? Me, in being in a relationship with my husband or boyfriend or whatever it is, how do I reward the right behavior? As a society, how can we make sure that the men treat us better? It's about what we put our foot down on and say, here the line is drawn, and we stick to that line and we stay behind it. And we don't compromise on it. That's how you get to a point where you can say, you know, how do I get men? It's not about getting them to change. It's just, how can I teach them that this is my line and this is where it ends? And I think that's my opinion about anything. How can I teach the next person to know that this is where the boundary is? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Valibechi. I think just to echo your words, I'm also a big believer in the fact that, you know, the way in which you present yourself and the things that, you know, allow will be the things that continue. So you only get treated to a certain extent how you allow yourself to be treated. And thank you so much. I think that brings us to the end of our conversation. We unfortunately do not have any time for any more questions. However, we'd like to do our closing remarks from you guys. And I think in those closing remarks, I'd like you guys to please, since this was, you know, a solution-seeking conversation, I'd like for us to please like touch on what was mostly said in this conversation about, you know, emancipating yourself mentally, as Busisiwe said, you know, and having agency over yourself. What solutions can you bring? And also, you know, be speaking of that in a sense that you're speaking to, you know, the student, and particularly the female students. So yes, thank you. Balibeji, I think yes, you may begin for us.
I think my final thing is to the student. I was once a student, best time of my life. I think you have to realize something in the context of the universe, in every little thing that makes up the universe. Everything happens so that you can be exactly what and where you are. And you have got to realize that you're not an accident or a mistake, that everything that you are is deliberate. And in so being, you have to be deliberate. Everything that is you is deliberate. It's not an accident, it's not by chance. You are only surviving and you're only here on this earth because the earth needs you. There's a saying in nature that there's a survival of the fittest, and that's it. You are surviving. You wake up with breath in your lungs every single morning because there is still a need for you to be there. So you have to hone in on, you must teach yourself at a university level where you're allowed to philosophize, think, and be yourself, and you're free. In that environment, you have to start to realize and come to bring yourself towards yourself and realize that you are necessary. That's why you're still here. Otherwise, the world would have done away with you a long time ago. You would have been hit by a bus. But you are not being hit by a bus. You wake up, there's air in your lungs, you have a voice in your voice box, you have eyes you can see, and you just need to accept the fact that you being here is deliberate. There's no way it can be an accident. There's no way you're worthless. Otherwise, the world gets rid of what it does not need. And you're here because you're needed to be here. And you need to come closer to what that reason is. That's what I can say about a student. And have fun. It's the best time of your life. Have fun, lots of fun.
Thank you, thank you. I'll hand over to Thuto, your last words, please. And perhaps can you please just like make it a bit brief in roughly 30 seconds or so?
Right, okay. I think for me is, yeah, just stay the course. Keep the focus, because the bigger picture, yeah, rather keep your eyes on the prize. It's very important, because we need a lot more women at the top, and you're not going to get there by accident. You're going to get there by participating in the cause. So please stay the course, work hard, stand your ground, and understand the environment that you are operating in, politically, economically, socially, so that at least you know the rules. By knowing the rules, you know how to play the game. But stay the course, please. We need a lot more of us at the top, and that's just not going to happen by chance. It's going to happen by everybody else putting in their part.
And Busisiwe, your last words.
I'll be brief, don't worry, I know you're worried. One thing that I can say is that never lose your voice. When you're young, you've got nothing to lose. You know, you don't have, majority of you guys don't have the baggage that we have in terms of, you know, if I talk too much, then I might lose my job and my children might be forced to be out of their private school. And therefore you're very cautious in terms of what you're saying in the work environment, or actually even everywhere you are. So you guys have got an opportunity to actually speak your mind right now before you've got all these responsibilities that we're all carrying, and focus on the right things. You guys have got the power to change policy. You guys have got the power to change the country, actually. You know, I mean, I always look at the youth of a specific era and the role that you guys have played in terms of Feast Must Fall. That's one of the things that I applaud you guys for, and want to see more of those, to say, again, the power that you had, you used it, and it actually changed the narrative in terms of, free education. So use that power that you're having, and do not be ashamed or do not be scared to say things that are not popular, because those things that are not popular are the things that really, really everybody wants to say, but they're scared to say. So say it. And one of the things that I always say, speak up, even your voice is shaking. Even if your voice is shaking, just speak up. And it doesn't really matter if it sounds like your English is broken or whatever. Just speak up and make a difference in terms of what you're saying. Focus on the right things. Enjoy your life as a youth, but also focus on the right things and think of long term. Think of a bigger picture, as my other sisters have said. Look at the bigger picture and say, what role can I play as a person in changing things? And when I look back, will I be proud that I've actually contributed something into the future? And that's what I'm challenging each and every one of you to really look at a bigger picture and say, what role can I play as a person? And don't ever be threatened, and don't ever let your voice be shut. Speak up, speak up, speak up. Thanks.
We shall speak up indeed. And last but not least, Tsholofelo, the voice of the future leaders of the country on this panel. May you please give us your closing thoughts?
Okay, so for me, I'm just going to say that as young women, we should have a winning mentality and know that there's so much more for us. So the fight has just started. We must just keep on pushing, be consistent, and persevere in it. Thank you.
Short and sweet and very, very powerful. Thank you so much, Tsholofelo. And I would just like to thank our panelists once again. We have unfortunately run over time. Thank you so much. I think that, since we are over time, if you need to quickly leave, that would be allowed. I would just like to hand over to our partners, representative from VMP, to just give us a word on, their thoughts on the conversation and how it went. And yeah, I'd like to hand over to you.
Hello everyone. I am the CEO and founder of the Mentorship program. That is an organization that focuses on grade 11 and 12. So we basically go to schools and target certain grade 11s and 12s, and we assign them to mentors. So we also offer career guidance as well as academic guidance. And as part of community building, we help other grade 12 learners who are not part of the organization with applications. And we also have annual career expos. So ABASA Wits approached us for a partnership for this particular event, and we felt it fitting to partner with them and Straight Talk with Nolan, because we believe that we are the organizations that are at the forefront of addressing social injustices and inequality. I think this was really insightful, and I would like to thank all the speakers. But I think what I'd like to put forward also, especially with the fact that women don't really need empowerment, is that maybe we should also focus on the male child. And with mentorship, I believe if we can extend mentorship to the learners, the boys who are at school, we can be able to show them that this is how they should behave in society, not in a way to restrict them, but to show them that this is the correct way, and we can be able to guide them and give them the support that they need. And in my experience as a female leader as well, I've had my male counterparts supporting me because the organization comprises of both males and females. So I've had my male counterparts also supporting me, and it just shows that through collaboration we can actually make an impact in society. So yeah, I'm really grateful for this conversation. It was very insightful and I've learned a lot. And I hope that we can take the solutions and some of the lessons that have been spoken about, and we can not only apply them in our organizations, but also in our personal lives, so that we can make the society a better place for women. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tsholofelo. Next, I would like to hand over to our other partner from Straight Talk with Nolan, Mr. Nolan Pillay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you once again. Such a powerful conversation. It was really heartwarming. So I picked up a few nuggets from you, right? And I kind of reflected on my own. So when we spoke about the salary, I asked the question, why are we not bold enough to go and ask for that ideal salary? And then I bring it back to my life. Being a male, I've also been in that position where I undervalued myself so much that I just accepted what was given to me. So how do you learn these things? How do you unlearn or relearn your value? It's very simple, right? We all have powerful mindsets, and I strongly believe, and with the company, if we can focus on fixing the mindsets of every single one of us, both the man, the boy and the girl child, and help us as much as possible. Someone mentioned that this is the generation that's going to change this country. I strongly believe in that. This is the generation that's going to lead and build this country to better. So at Straight Talk with Nolan, what we do is we partnered up with ABASA a while ago, and we've piloted a program, an 8-day coaching program with 3 of the female students. And the results speak for itself. The program is here to help people with the mindsets. What we teach is, we teach basic values that have been lost. When we think about leadership, everybody focuses on leadership like it's a title. We don't focus on leadership in that way. We focus on authentic leadership. We want you to be your true self. We want you to come and speak your hard truth. Because when people speak their hard truth, it's easier to follow you. It's easier to understand where you come from. Me coming from a poverty-stricken background, I remember starting with a small candlelight like this. And it's not because of load shedding. It's because we couldn't afford to buy electricity. So I know what it feels like to be in a poverty situation. I know what it feels like to work in major corporates. I left the corporate world last year, June, because humanity had dropped. And I made a promise to myself, I'm going to get out of there because I don't want to be in that negative, vicious cycle, and do something about it and come back and educate people on humanity. And that's key for us, right? So it's all about self-worth. It's helping you be the best version of yourself. And this is where we believe that we can add so much more value to the youth of today. Our focus is on teens and the young adults because they are the change makers for the future. So thank you very much for all the conversations. So special, so many great nuggets coming out from here. And I just want to leave everyone with one last thing. Where I come from to where I am now, life does not have to end where we are, right? So let's take accountability for everything that's happened so far, and we can move forward with such more positive enthusiasm and change and make the difference in this world, especially to our country. So thank you once again. Thanks, Bianca, and thanks to everyone.
Thank you indeed. And I think that in closing this conversation, the main things that I have picked up on is that, you know, as the great change makers of the future, as Nolan calls us, all of us need to just do our parts. And in doing our parts, do it so authentically and in lifting as we rise, and not, and you know, doing so in a form of like collaboration and community, right? So with that being said, thank you once again to everyone. I would like to hand over to Precious Letiane to do our closing for us.
Thank you. Okay, so as part of my closing remarks, I would love to leave you with a poem by Maya Angelou, Phenomenal Women. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I am not cute or built to suit a fashion model's size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it is in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I am a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I am a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman. That's me. That's just how phenomenal women are. You are amazing. And for the longest time, I thought being a woman, being a Black woman in this world was all doom but because of the women I am surrounded with, and because of such conversations, I have realized that being a woman is magic because we are powerful and phenomenal. And as a young woman who's looking to make an impact in this world we live in, it is such a privilege to be part of such conversations because not many get the opportunity. So on behalf of ABASA Wits, I would love to extend our warmest and deepest gratitude to our speakers, our host, and the attendees, and the ABASA Wits team. This could have not been possible without any of you. You could have been elsewhere doing something, but you are here helping us change the world. So as part of us being intentional about finding solutions to issues that women face, the two organizations, Straight Talk with Nolan and ABASA Wits, have compiled a short video which we hope to get the world to help us in this journey of rising up for females.
Here at ABASA Wits, we believe that Women's Day is every day. Lead, follow, and in turn create more leaders.
Straight Talk with Nolan believes that we need to develop the young minds because our younger generation, if you look at everything that's going on at the moment, we've never experienced this previously. So we strongly believe if we can affect the younger minds into believing in themselves, imagine in a few years' time what a beautiful country we would have, how these individuals would have developed themselves and helped others in the process. It's just unbelievable. In my experience, from all my mentees that I have to date, they always take the mentorship from myself and they pass it on to their colleagues. And trust me, it's a massive impact and it makes a big difference.
As individuals and society at large, we must continually work on enabling spaces and opportunities for women to take up space. In the spaces we find ourselves occupying, indeed, our actions must speak as loud as our words when it comes to this. Our words alone will not enable spaces for women. Our words alone will not end gender-based violence. In essence, our words alone will never be enough. A few weeks ago, 3 of our female executive members got an opportunity to be part of the Be the Best Version of Yourself program for free. This is an 8-day program offered by the company Straight Talk with Nolan, where one essentially learns skills and strategies of how they can continually become the best version of themselves. And it is normally charged at 2,495 per person. As ABASA Wits, we want to play our part in empowering as many female members as we can by granting them an opportunity to be part of this amazing program. As a male and the current chairperson of ABASA Wits, I want to challenge corporate South Africa. I want to challenge civil society. I want to challenge individuals, and I want to challenge ABASA at large to assist us in raising as much money as we can to empower our female members. As a student, I will also contribute the little that I have towards this very important cause. And interestingly enough, we've managed to secure a 30% discount per person on this program. South Africa, let's rise to enable opportunities for women. South Africa, let us rise for young people. I thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Quite a lot has been said about mentality and mindset, and being one of the being one of the lucky ladies who got to be part of the program, I can safely say my life changed drastically after I changed my mindset, because it all begins in your head. Your brain is a very powerful tool. It'll do what you tell it. So tell it positive things. And from that, this program is quite beneficial. And that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you.